Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Duck Zone. We are in March Madness. In my opinion, the best time of the year, the greatest Thursday Friday combination on the sports calendar. We got the bracket. It's been revealed. 68 teams in after these last two wonderful weeks of championship week. James, how excited are you for this upcoming week of college basketball?
I'm pumped. This is always a fun time. I'm a little nervous coming back. I feel like we haven't done a pod in a while, so it's like trying to get back into the swing of things. But um, nothing wrong with talking about March Madness. It's definitely one of the high points of a sports person's year.
Yeah, and it's a gambling person's dream. Vegas, the casinos, all the different sports books around the country. This is where a lot of money gets dealt, and obviously the fun pools between friends as well. It's always fun to see the person that knows the least about college basketball somehow winning these things. Um, but we won't waste too much time. Let's just jump right on into it. We're going to go region by region. We're going to talk about the team that we think is going to come out and a surprise team that may make some noise in each region. We'll just jump right on into it, make it sweet and easy. Right in the South, who do you have coming out of the South as your winner? And actually, we'll give you the platform to do sleeper as well. We'll go back to back.
Sweet. Yeah. First reaction. Obviously, we're doing this hour, 2 hours after the brackets were revealed. So my first reaction to this, just right off the bat, I was like, you know what? Out of the South, I think I got to take Auburn. I know they've been struggling the past couple weeks. They didn't win their conference tournament. They were upset, I think a week and a half ago or something. They're kind of they're not playing their best basketball at the right time, but I still think that they have an incredible head coach in Bruce Pearl. They have Janai Broom, who is just there's nothing flashy about him, but he gets the job done. Great scorer, great rebounder, good defender. Definitely, a player you want to have on your team. And I think they hopefully can right the ship at the right time going into March Madness. So they're my Final Four pick coming out of the South. Oh, go ahead.
No, no, go for it. You're good.
As for my sleeper team, I'm taking Yale. I'm not quite sure how far I have Yale going yet when it comes to filling out my bracket, but I definitely have Yale beating Texas A&M in the first round. And I guess they would play the winner of UC San Diego, Michigan, so that could also be not a bad opponent for them as well. But Yale, they won their matchup last year against Auburn in the first round. They've been there before. Um, they're coming off of a Ivy League championship. These Bulldogs aren't to be frowned upon. I mean, they're a good team. I remember Arizona played Yale a couple years back, and I don't know if it's the same type of offense, but a lot of guard play, a lot of 3 point shooting, and in today's whether it's the NBA or college basketball, it's kind of how the game is played now. So if Yale can get hot and start making some shots, I mean, who's to say they can't go to the Sweet 16? So Yale's my kind of sleeper team for that region, and I'll pass it over to you for your Final Four and sleeper team.
Yeah, out of the four regions, I found this one when I filled it out the first time through to be the most chalky. I don't think we're going to get a lot of crazy upsets in this one. I have Michigan State coming out two seeds, so no big surprise there. Michigan State, you never know what you're going to get out of them out of March. It's either a very fast exit or they're going to have a deep run. It just, you don't know which one it's going to be. They're either going to get upset real quick in that first weekend, really disappointingly, or they're gonna make a Final Four run. There's really it doesn't seem like there's much in between with the Michigan State team. Um, I like how they're playing. I think they come out and they win it. And as I said, I don't think this is going to be a crazy region. I think this is going to be a pretty predictable region. Now, said that, watch this thing blow up entirely. I have UC San Diego beating Michigan in the first round. Their first year in Division One, and they make the tournament, which is awesome. But they're riding high. They've won a lot of games. I think they've won 15 in a row, if I remember that right. Um, They look good, and that Michigan team, they look all right in the Big Ten championship. They've played a lot of games, but it's tough. They've now played a lot of games in a row, and they're asked to now go play on Thursday. No real rest for them for a high octane UC San Diego team.
Yeah, the Tritons. They're
Yeah,
a exciting story.
yeah. So should be fun to see, and I think it's going to be a pretty chalky region in my opinion, especially compared to some of these other ones. Let's jump on over to the East, which has a lot of fun matchups. The headliners of this one: Duke, Alabama, Wisconsin, Arizona, Oregon. Those are your top five. BYU's the six. Who do you got coming out of this one, and who might be your sleeper team?
Yeah, you can call me a homer. It is my team. I'm actually picking Arizona to come out of this, but I do have some decent reasons. Duke obviously is the betting favorite. You know, I want to see how Duke plays in their first round. I want to see how Cooper Flag's ankle holds up. I mean, he took a nasty spill. I mean, a player like him, these guys are like freak athletes, so watch him come back and be like completely fine. But I still just want to see like what he does because I mean, is Duke still good without him? Absolutely. Are they winning a national championship without him? I'm not sure about that. Alabama has also kind of struggled as of late. They're not. They're really, really good and they're really offensive, but I don't know. I just feel like as an Arizona fan, I'm not entirely scared by this region. I say that now, and then it's like this will be a crazy region. I mean, talk about any region you want. You think one region's bad and one region's good, and then it flip flops because it's March Madness. So who knows? Anyways, I'm taking Arizona. I think we actually are playing pretty decent basketball right now. We went head to head with Houston in our championship game in the Big 12. Caleb Love's playing some really good basketball. I think we have what it takes to at least make a Final Four. Oregon, if we play Oregon in the second round, that would be a tough game. Luckily, Arizona and Oregon know each other pretty well. With this just being the first year, they're not in the same conference. So, Arizona is my Final Four team. As for sleeper team, my sleeper team is St. Mary's. I know they're a 7 seed, and they're still considered obviously a mid-major. But St. Mary's to me this year is they're the Gonzaga of what Gonzaga has always been previous. I mean, St. Mary's minus their championship game beat Gonzaga twice in the regular season. They kind of owned that conference, and the Gales are, they're really really good, and they have a really good head coach who, prior to ASU retaining Bobby Hurley, they were talking about him potentially taking the ASU job, which would be interesting, especially because he's from Arizona. He's from Mesa. Um, but that obviously doesn't seem to be happening. St. Mary's, I think, is a really good team, and this could be the year that St. Mary's, I think, you know, I think St. Mary's could beat Alabama and go to the Sweet 16. So St. Mary's is my sleeper team, and I'll hand it back over to you for your East picks.
Yeah, I think this is an extreme. Actually, I actually think this is a really deep region. I named off a few of those teams early on. I could see 7 teams here potentially making it to the Final Four, given how certain things happen. I also see 3 double-digit teams that could pull off upsets. I could see VCU win. I could see Liberty win. I could see Akron win. It just you never know what's going to happen in that first game. So I could see this region kind of getting completely blown up. I'm gonna go pretty chalk here. I've liked Duke all year. They looked really good in the ACC uh,
Tournament.
tournament. Thank you. And they're going into this thing 31-3. I think something like that. Cooper Flag's health is a big concern. If he is healthy and everything goes, this is gonna be a really hard team to beat. I'm gonna take Duke coming out of it. I'm gonna bet on that. I think it's gonna happen. But I don't think it's going to be an easy ride coming out of this region. As I said, I could see Arizona making a deep run. I could see Alabama making a deep run. One of my sleeper teams is BYU. I have them going all the way to the Elite Eight as a 6. I can see them beating quite a few of these teams along the way. But I think this is going to be a very exciting region. Duke coming out of it, BYU being my sleeper. I'm really excited. If it happens, we get the good old Pac-12 matchup of Oregon Arizona, which for many years was always a great game.
Oh,
Uh,
they were the one-two punch in the
yeah,
Pac-12 for a long time. Maybe
always.
throw UCLA in there a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it didn't matter if it was being played in Eugene or in Tucson. Those games were always fantastic. And, it's one of the few times I'm not going to be rooting for an upset, even though it could happen, on the 5-12 line. Um, it would be really fun to see those two teams go at it again. It feels appropriate, given the fact that, first, it was when I saw it happen, I was like, wow, that's really weird to see. Um, that they would potentially play in the second round. It's really weird.
It's also weird to think that it would be Big Ten Oregon going up against Big 12 Arizona.
Yeah, 100%. It'd be just odd, but it'd be fun. I think it's gonna be a really fun region to watch, and I think it has a pretty good potential of being blown up. Let's go down to the Midwest.
All right, I have Houston coming out of the Midwest. I mean, this is the third year in a row Houston has been a one seed. Kelvin Sampson has that team playing very well, like he always does, it seems. Houston, I feel like, has been, if you want to, I don't want to call Houston a blue blood by any means, but if you just look back at the past decade, I mean, Houston's got to be they're a top five team for sure when it comes to wins and, what they've done in March Madness and what they've done in their conference tournaments. I mean, they just won the Big 12 tournament, and they're in their second year in the Big 12, so that's pretty remarkable. Houston to me is very complete. I do want to see how their big man, what's his name? Is it Roberts? He didn't play in the championship game, and they still got the win over Arizona. So obviously he's got a week to recover. I don't think his injury was like as bad as Cooper Flagg's by any means, but him coming back will only bolster that roster. So I like Houston coming out of the Midwest. My sleeper team is Utah State. They always seem to make the tournament. I don't quote me on this, but I remember hearing something about this is their third head coach and their third year in a row making the tournament, or it was something along the lines of like maybe it's three head coaches in the past however many years has led them to the tournament. Something weird. Anyways, they're starting to make a name for themselves. They're not like seeing Utah State in March Madness isn't weird anymore. It just seems like almost like, oh yeah, Utah State, they're a solid team. They're going to make the tournament. So Utah State's, they're my sleeper team. I have them going to the Sweet 16. I'm not too high on Tennessee, and honestly, I'm just really not high on the Big Ten overall. I mean, there's a couple like I know you have Michigan State coming out of the South region, but like I just didn't think the Big Ten had a lot of good teams, not a lot of great teams. And UCLA to me is a good team. I don't think they're great by any means. So I think a Utah State upset is very manageable. So yeah, kick it back over to you.
Yeah, I'll go pretty quickly into this one. I think Tennessee comes out, and I'm going to bridge that to where my sleeper is, who I actually have Gonzaga making it to the Elite Eight. Gonzaga as an eight is really scary. Very talented team. Houston's one of these weird teams where I agree with everything that you say. Fantastic regular season team, but they've gotten to the tournament these last 10-ish years, and it just doesn't feel like the same thing. I don't know why. They've been a one, they've been a two. We've seen them in these high spots, but they get to certain matchups and they just kind of roll over and die. And
Well,
they
have they
just
made
don't.
a Final Four?
They did. Remember, they did in 2021. And remember, that
Okay,
was the game where they just didn't even decide. They just decided not to show up. They lost
that's
by
right.
like
That's
30
right.
something. It was like, but like they're one of these weird teams that like they look great coming in the tournament, and then they just somewhere along the tournament they just roll over and they just fall apart, and it's just like this doesn't feel like the same team. Like they win like 30 games and they look great. I think Gonzaga is going to knock them off, and I think Gonzaga is going to peel their way into the Elite Eight with this talent. Just everything's going to click. I think they're going to get to Tennessee, and I think it's going to be too much. But there's a lot of other teams I think are interesting. You named Utah State. I think that one's interesting. Another one I want to shout out really quick is McNeese. they're in the same spot they were in last year at 12 seed. A lot of people were talking about Nick McNeese last year when they were playing Gonzaga. They were a very highly picked 12 seed, and then Gonzaga just rolled them away within like 8 minutes of the game. Just like took them out of the game, and I was like, okay, well, I guess we were all wrong here. I think McNeese learns from that game, and they go in against Clemson, who's also a good ACC team, but I think they come in one more year experience, knowing what the stage is, not as nervous, and they don't get knocked out within the first 5 minutes. And I think they could hang around. And I think you brought up, did you bring up High Point?
I didn't,
Yeah.
but they're an interesting team. A lot of people, like I said, brackets haven't been out that long, and a lot of people are already saying High Point over Purdue is a possibility. So I'll have to look more into that. But I know nothing about High Point.
Yeah.
So, but they're if they're a team that can pull off the upset against Purdue, maybe that can happen. Purdue's definitely not the team they were last year. They lost Zach
Mm-hmm.
Edey. And honestly, like I said, the Big Ten had a lot of good teams. You know, last year Purdue was an elite team.
Yeah.
They didn't show it, obviously, in the tournament. They didn't go as far as, a lot of people had them winning it all because they had Zach Edey and whatnot. But, yeah, I guess we'll
Yeah.
see.
All right, let's jump over to the last region, the West. This one being highlighted by Florida, St. John's, Texas Tech, Maryland, Memphis, Kansas. Did they win a game? Let's. What do you got coming out of this region, and who's your sleeper?
I do think Kansas wins their first round game. That's an interesting matchup, and the committee
Yeah,
did that on purpose to have Bill Self versus John Calipari.
yeah, yeah.
That'll be a tight one.
I mean that. Let me just interrupt you for a second. That little two-game matchup right there of Calipari, Self, and Rick
Pitino.
Pitino all playing. It's amazing. That's three Hall of Famers right there.
Oh, yeah. And barring a, fluke, Omaha upset, which I doubt
Yeah,
happens. But,
yeah.
well, speaking of Rick Pitino, I actually have Rick Pitino and his Johnnies coming out as my Final Four team. That team, if there's an under the radar team that's been all season, maybe it's me just not having followed the Big East as closely as maybe probably should have, but it's like every time I looked at the AP poll, I was like, St. John's, wow, they're the number 6 team in the country. I should check out I should check out their game and see what they're all about. Never did, never watched St. John's. I have watched some highlights, and I did. You know what? I shouldn't say I didn't watch. I watched St. John's Marquette, which was the other day. But St. John's is like really impressive, and like you said, I mean Rick Pitino, Hall of Fame head coach, the guy just no matter where he goes, he wins. So I like St. John's honestly coming out of this region. As for my sleeper team, I really like Grand Canyon. They pulled off an upset last year. I can't remember. Did Grand Canyon go to the Sweet 16 last year and lose?
No, they lost in the
They lost in
second
the second
round,
round. Okay,
but they beat St. Mary's in the first round.
that's right. Well, Grand Canyon, I still think is a fun story. Obviously, they're from the state we're from in Arizona. One player I'm going to highlight. They have a player on their team. He actually dropped in scoring, so I looked him up. Tyon Grant Foster. He was a Kansas recruit. Played 1 year under Bill Self. Transferred to DePaul. He had kind of a Bronny James type situation where he like collapsed on the court and had to get resuscitated. Anyways, long story short, he winds up at Grand Canyon. He's an NBA prospect. He averages 20 points a game last year. I don't know what happened this year with him. He was averaging like 14. Something I'll have to look into again. But, I mean, for him to potentially be an NBA prospect, guy that could get drafted, that's something I like. And something that, having a player like that in March Madness is huge. Someone like a go-to guy who can get you a bucket. Maryland is a really tough team though too. So they're super offensive, and I think their starting five was the best in the country when it came to like, you know,
Yeah.
points or something. They had some crazy stat. So, but I still like Grand Canyon. I think they're at 13.
Yep.
They're definitely a team that if they get by Maryland and they have to play Memphis or Colorado State, I think Grand Canyon could. I don't want to say easily, but I think Grand Canyon could go to the Sweet 16.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a square. It's a scary little 4, 5, 12, 13 area right there. I'm thinking Florida. I actually like St. John's a lot too. That's a tough one for me, but I'm going to take Florida. I think they were the best team in the SEC. SEC got 14 teams. There's a reason for that. I'm gonna bet on Florida on that one, and I think they actually have at least up to the Elite Eight a pretty easy road, or manageable road. We call it that for them. Um, really not really having to face potentially an SEC opponent the whole way, which is incredible. Um, and my sleeper is Drake. Drake has been a team that a lot of people have been talking about all season long. A lot of those guys came from D2 and now have just kind of been pairing it up throughout the season. I think they beat Missouri. I think they beat Texas Tech. And then they're going to have a tough little matchup against St. John's. Um, but everything you said about St. John's, I would not be surprised if they make it to the Final Four. I'm just giving the hair first instinct, first reaction to Florida, giving a lot of respect to the SEC and how good they've been all year.
Yeah, Drake's an interesting. Jumping back to Drake, they're an interesting team because, like you said, they have a lot of players on their team that came from D2. Their coach came from D2 because
Yeah,
Drake's head coach last year went on to become the West Virginia coach. So Drake's coach and their players won it. I think they won a national championship in D2.
it was something like that. Yeah,
And then they all jumped to Drake. So they have championship experience. Granted, not against Division One teams, but they showed it this year. They have like 30 wins, so it's
yeah,
like they've been a good team all year.
yeah. They're 30-3, and I mean they're going to score points. Uh, it will be interesting to see what happens. So, and Drake has been in the tournament before, so it's a known brand. Um,
Yeah,
before we sign off here, you want to do our national championship picks real quick?
sure. Well, yeah, let's go for it.
I think we have a completely different Final Four, so that's pretty fun to start with.
So let's do this. So I had Auburn out of the South,
Mm-hmm.
and I have St. John's out of the West. I'm taking Auburn
Okay.
to win that game. I think I think the I think it's just a testament to the SEC and the strength of schedule that Auburn played. Nothing against St. John's. I mean, the Big East was pretty tough too. I mean, UConn, Marquette, teams like that who are also tough. But I think Auburn's just built for it. And that would also be a really good head coaching matchup of Pearl versus Patino.
Yep.
So I have Auburn going to the championship. Arizona Houston in a Final Four, that'd be kind of funny. That'd be the third time they'd match up. As much as I'd love to pick Arizona, we just can't beat. We lost to Houston a couple years ago in the Sweet 16. We couldn't beat Houston this year at home. We lost to Houston on a neutral site in the championship game. Until I can see Arizona beat Houston, I don't think I can't just pick the Wildcats to win. So I think I'd have to go Houston Auburn, and I gut reaction makes me want to go Auburn, just cutting down the nets.
Okay. Yeah, so your first thing, left side is almost the same thing of the aspect, just different teams. I'm taking Florida over Michigan State, basically almost the exact same reasoning, SEC being really powerful. They won the conference and everything like that. So Florida there. On the right side, Duke, Tennessee, I'd take Duke, and I'd have Duke beating Florida in the end. Rooting on Cooper Flag to stay healthy, pretty much. So,
Yeah, I mean, if Cooper can stay healthy, I mean, I'd love to see if his game elevates at all in March.
yeah,
Granted, that his ankle is 100%.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's going to be an exciting 3 weeks. It's best time of the year. James, any closing thoughts before we sign off here?
Not really. Just good luck to all you college basketball fans out there, whether you're rooting on your team, whether you don't have a team in it and you're betting. It's a fun, like you said, it's a fun 3 weeks.
It is a fantastic 3 weeks.
and a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah, this is
I'm
true. This
excited
is
to see
true.
the amount of crying people on TV when their team loses.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people get jobs off of this, and guys that we've never heard of become household names for at least a week or so. Um,
Well,
last,
and now with the NIL, I mean, I look at a player in Arizona,
mhm.
Trey Townsend. He
Yep,
was on Oakland last year. They upset Kentucky.
yep,
He had like 15-10 against Kentucky. All of a sudden, vaults himself up, and he's one of the top transfers. And Arizona goes to get him, and he wasn't honestly really wasn't that good for us during the season, but he's been
yep.
really good in March. He's had a really good Big 12 tournament, so it's like guys like that. I mean, have a good play well in March, and you could be on Bryant playing Michigan State, and all of a sudden, oh, you dropped 20 like
Yep.
on Michigan State, even though you lost. Well, here, why don't you transfer and come play for us at Michigan State?
Well, I mean, it was the first year of NIL, so this goes back a couple years, and I think it was 2022 if I got this right. But remember, St. Pete's beat Kentucky, and then they made their little title run. Like they got to the Elite Eight or whatever it was, and they got knocked out. What it was, the top 8 guys all left and gained tons of money from other schools that were all bigger. And I don't think any one of those players actually ever really heard of ever again for the most part. But
Mm.
they all got their bag because of that run in March a few years ago, and they all went to go play bigger levels. Even the coach got a big bag out of that.
Right.
So it's a fun time. But all right, well, I don't have too much to add, and yeah, we'll be back soon talking the beginning of the Major League Baseball season, which is just around the corner. We'll obviously be keeping an eye on this, and a wonderful rebranding is coming to the pod very shortly. We're just getting through March Madness and the wonderful springtime. So um, yeah, I think that's all we got. James,
End
anything
it
else?
there.
Cool. Perfect.
Bear down.
All right. I'll see y'all later, guys.